Bruce Lee was one of Ip Man's most talented students, but his time at the Wing Chun school ended abruptly. Some say he was too rebellious. Others believe jealousy played a role. But the real reason remains buried beneath years of speculation and secrecy. Join us as we uncover the real reason Ip Man stopped teaching Bruce Lee. Who was Bruce Lee? Bruce Lee was born on November 27, 1940 in San Francisco, but he grew up in Hong Kong. From a young age, he was surrounded by the world of entertainment. His father, Lee Hoi-chuen, was a famous Cantonese opera singer and actor, which meant Bruce was introduced to the film industry early. He made his first movie appearance when he was just a baby, playing a newborn in Golden Gate Girl. By the time he was a teenager, he had already acted in about 20 films, becoming one of Hong Kong's most recognizable child stars. On the surface, Bruce's life seemed glamorous. He was on movie sets, working with famous actors, and living the life of a young celebrity. But outside the camera's frame, his reality was far from easy. Hong Kong in the 1940s and 50s was a tough place to grow up. The city was crowded, poverty was everywhere, and gang violence was a serious problem. Despite his fame, Bruce was not immune to the dangers of the streets. In fact, his status as a young movie star made him an even bigger target. Some people wanted to befriend him because he was famous, but others wanted to challenge him, hoping to prove they were tougher than the kid on the big screen. Bruce was naturally athletic and full of energy. He didn't just act in films. He loved to move. He enjoyed dancing, especially cha-cha, and was so good that he even won a Hong Kong dance competition. But beyond dancing, Bruce had a rebellious and competitive side. He didn't like being told what to do, and he always wanted to prove himself. He got into fights often, sometimes because he was defending himself, and sometimes just because he wanted to test his strength. This rebellious streak worried his parents. They saw that Bruce was getting into trouble too often, and feared for his safety. Rough upbringing in the streets. Bruce Lee's childhood in Hong Kong was far from peaceful. He grew up in Kowloon, a densely populated area where poverty, gang violence, and crime were a part of everyday life. After World War II, Hong Kong was still recovering, and many families struggled to make ends meet. The streets were filled with kids who had little supervision, and many of them turned to street gangs for protection. The most powerful force in the city's underworld was the triads, large criminal organizations that controlled everything from illegal gambling to f***ing. Even the police were often influenced by them, making it hard for regular people to find protection. Despite being a young movie star, Bruce wasn't shielded from these dangers. In fact, his fame made him an even bigger target. Triads had a strong presence in Hong Kong's entertainment industry, and they often recruited or threatened young actors. If they could convince someone like Bruce to join them, it would boost their status. On the other hand, if a young triad member could beat up a well-known actor, it would earn them respect among their peers. This meant Bruce had to constantly watch his back. Bruce wasn't the type to back down from a fight. By the time he was 12, he had already developed a reputation for being tough. But even a strong fighter couldn't survive alone in the streets of Hong Kong. That's why Bruce and his friends formed their own gang, the Tigers of Junction Street. This wasn't a gang in the criminal sense. It was a group of kids who banded together for self-defense. They weren't looking to cause trouble, but they knew that if they were alone, they could easily be attacked by rival groups or pressured into joining the triads. Having a gang meant having backup. If one member was in trouble, the others would come to help. For Bruce, street fighting wasn't just an activity, it was necessary for survival. There were no referees, no rules, and no second chances. If someone started a fight with you, you had to defend yourself, or you'd get seriously hurt. Bruce quickly learned that traditional martial arts weren't always practical in a real fight. He had studied some techniques from his father, who practiced Tai Chi, but they weren't effective in the fast, brutal encounters he faced. He also dabbled in Hung Gar, a southern Chinese style known for its powerful stances and strikes. But once again, he found that in a real fight, these styles didn't always work the way he wanted them to. Introduction to Kung Fu. Bruce Lee's first experience with martial arts came from his father, Li Hoi-chuen, who practiced Tai Chi Chuan. Tai Chi is a traditional Chinese martial art that focuses on slow, flowing movements, balance, and internal energy. It is often practiced for health and meditation rather than combat. As a child, Bruce would watch his father perform these graceful movements, and sometimes he would join in. But to young Bruce, Tai Chi felt more like an exercise for relaxation rather than a way to defend himself in a fight. He was growing up in the rough streets of Kowloon, where fights were fast, aggressive, and unpredictable. He needed something that could work in real combat, and Tai Chi wasn't the answer. As Bruce got older, he became more interested in martial arts that seemed stronger and more powerful. He explored Hung Gar, a southern Chinese kung fu style known for its deep stances, strong strikes, and powerful blocking techniques. It was a popular fighting style in Hong Kong, and Bruce was drawn to it because of its reputation. However, when he tried using Hung Gar in real fights, he found that it didn't work as well as he had hoped. The movements were too rigid and took too long to execute in a fast-paced street fight. Bruce began to realize that traditional styles weren't always effective in real-life situations, especially against an unpredictable opponent. This frustration led Bruce to become obsessed with finding a martial art that actually worked. He didn't just want to learn for the sake of tradition, he wanted to be able to win fights. He started studying different styles, watching skilled fighters, and testing techniques in actual street fights. He wanted to understand what worked and what didn't. His search for an effective combat style became his new passion. Run-in with the triads. Bruce Lee was no stranger to street fights, but one particular fight nearly changed the course of his life forever. While attending LaSalle College, a prestigious boys' school in Hong Kong, Bruce got into an intense fight with a fellow student. But this wasn't just any student. He was the son of a powerful triad leader. The triads were Hong Kong's most feared criminal organizations, and messing with the wrong person could lead to serious consequences. During the fight, Bruce's natural aggression and quick strikes completely overwhelmed his opponent. He didn't just win, he knocked the boy out. Word spread fast, and soon Bruce realized that this wasn't just another schoolyard brawl. He had humiliated the son of someone very dangerous, and now the triads wanted payback. Rumors started circulating that triad members were planning to ambush Bruce after school. Some students whispered that gang members were already waiting outside, ready to teach him a lesson. Bruce, who had been in plenty of fights before, now faced a different kind of danger. This wasn't just about fists anymore. This was life or death. Fearing what might happen, Bruce hid inside the teacher's lounge, hoping to avoid the gang members waiting outside. For hours he stayed there, unsure of what to do. He knew that stepping outside could mean serious trouble. Some say that this was one of the incidents that eventually led to Bruce being expelled from LaSalle College. His constant fighting had already drawn attention from school authorities, and this latest incident only made things worse. This experience made Bruce realize that he needed something more than just natural skill. He had survived fights before, but now he was facing enemies who wouldn't fight fair. He needed real martial arts training, something that would give him discipline, control, and a way to defend himself against anyone, even against organized crime members. It was this moment that finally pushed Bruce to seek out a true martial arts master, and that decision would lead him straight to the legendary Wing Chun master, IP Man. Entry into IP Man's school. After Bruce Lee's dangerous encounter with the triads, he knew he needed proper martial arts training. He wanted something practical, something that would actually help him survive on the streets. That's when his classmate, William Chung, introduced him to Wing Chun. William was a skilled martial artist himself, and Bruce had been impressed by how effortlessly he won fights. Curious about William's secret, Bruce asked how he always managed to come out on top. William's answer was simple: "If you want to know, follow me." Bruce followed William to a small, modest martial arts school. This was the Wing Chun School of IP Man, one of the most respected martial arts masters in Hong Kong. But when Bruce saw the techniques being taught, he was skeptical. The Wing Chun stance looked too rigid, feet close together, hands positioned forward. It didn't seem aggressive or flashy like the styles he had seen before. To Bruce, it looked weak. He immediately pointed out what he thought was a flaw, saying that the stance left an opening for a kick. Instead of arguing, one of IP Man's senior students, Chu Shong-tin, simply invited Bruce to test his theory. "Go ahead and kick me," Chu said calmly. Bruce, always confident, took the challenge and threw a kick. But before he could even react, Chu blocked his leg and sent him crashing to the ground. The move was so fast and controlled that Bruce had no time to counter it. It was a wake-up call. At that moment, Bruce realized that Wing Chun was different from what he had seen before. It wasn't about looking impressive, it was about efficiency, speed, and control. These were exactly the qualities he needed for real fights on the street. Soon, Bruce began training at IP Man's school. While IP Man rarely gave personal lessons, he saw something special in Bruce. He recognized Bruce's talent and determination, and he occasionally gave him direct guidance. Under the watchful eye of IP Man and his top students, Bruce started his journey in Wing Chun, the martial art that would shape his future. Training with IP Man. Once Bruce Lee fully committed to Wing Chun, he trained harder than ever. His natural athleticism and obsession with improvement helped him progress rapidly. But while IP Man was the school's grandmaster, Bruce spent much of his training under Wang Shun-leong, one of IP Man's top students. Wang was known for his aggressive and practical approach to Wing Chun. He had proven its effectiveness in real fights, winning multiple BIMO challenge matches, illegal rooftop fights where martial artists tested their skills. Under Wang's guidance, Bruce sharpened his technique. Wing Chun wasn't about brute strength. It was about efficiency and directness. The system focused on taking the shortest path to victory, striking an opponent as quickly and effectively as possible. This approach deeply influenced Bruce, shaping his philosophy that later became the foundation of Jeet Kune Do. One of the most important lessons Bruce learned was Chi Sao, or sticking hands. At first, it seemed like a simple drill. Two practitioners moved their arms in a circular motion while maintaining contact. But Bruce soon realized Chi Sao was much more than a drill. It trained reflexes, sensitivity, and the ability to react instantly to an opponent's movements. Instead of relying on memorized techniques, a fighter developed instinctive responses, adapting in real time. This idea fascinated Bruce and became a core part of his future martial arts philosophy. Although IP Man didn't personally train every student, he recognized Bruce's potential. He saw Bruce's drive and talent, and despite his playful and sometimes rebellious nature, Bruce deeply admired his master. But their relationship wasn't without complications. Some students disapproved of Bruce's mixed heritage. His mother was part European, and in traditional Chinese martial arts culture, this could be a point of tension. Some even tried to discourage IP Man from teaching him. Despite these challenges, Bruce continued to grow under IP Man's school, refining his skills and learning the deeper principles of Wing Chun. His training had turned him into a skilled fighter, but he still had more to prove. But Bruce's time at IP Man's school wouldn't be smooth sailing. His presence quickly stirred up tensions among the older students. Tensions with older students. As Bruce Lee's skill in Wing Chun grew, so did the tensions between him and the older, more experienced students at IP Man's school. Bruce was talented, but he was also confident, sometimes too confident. His rapid improvement made him stand out, and not everyone liked it. In traditional Chinese martial arts schools, respect for senior students was important. Older students had spent years refining their skills and expected younger students to show humility. But Bruce wasn't the type to hold back. he wanted to test himself against the best, and he wasn't afraid to challenge senior students in sparring. This rubbed some of them the wrong way. Chi Sao, or sticking hands, was supposed to be a controlled training exercise. It helped students develop reflexes and adaptability rather than brute force. But for Bruce, Chi Sao often turned into something more intense. His natural speed and aggression made him a tough opponent, and some older students felt threatened by how quickly he was improving. As a result, sparring sessions sometimes became real fights. Some senior students deliberately targeted Bruce, hoping to put him in his place. But Bruce refused to back down. Instead, he took these challenges as opportunities to prove himself. Even when he lost, he analyzed his mistakes and worked even harder. His determination made him better, but it also widened the gap between him and the school's more traditional students. Another issue was Bruce's reputation outside the school. He was known as a hot-headed troublemaker who got into street fights. Some students believed that martial arts should be about discipline and self-control, not fighting on the streets. This created a divide. While Bruce saw Wing Chun as a way to become a better fighter, others saw it as a way of life, deeply rooted in tradition. The tension eventually became too much. Some older students, uncomfortable with Bruce's mixed heritage and his challenge to tradition, started pressuring IP Man to distance himself from Bruce. Though Bruce still had great respect for his teacher, he began to question the limits of traditional martial arts. He wanted something more, a system that focused purely on combat effectiveness, demands for expulsion over his ancestry. Bruce Lee's journey in Wing Chun wasn't just tough because of his attitude and rapid improvement. It was also complicated by prejudice. In the traditional Chinese martial arts world, there was a strong belief that martial arts should only be passed down to full-blooded Chinese students. Bruce, whose mother was Eurasian, faced discrimination from some of his fellow students. At the time, many martial artists feared that outsiders would learn their techniques and use them against the Chinese people. This belief came from a long history of colonial rule and oppression in China. Because of this, martial arts schools often had strict rules about who could train. To many traditionalists, Bruce wasn't Chinese enough. At first, Bruce's talent and dedication kept most people from openly challenging his right to train. But as he became more skilled and more confident, resentment grew. Some older students, already frustrated with his attitude, began to use his mixed heritage as a reason to push him out. They argued that he had no right to learn Wing Chun because he wasn't fully Chinese. These students put pressure on IP Man, the school's grandmaster, to expel Bruce. While IP Man was a man of deep knowledge and wisdom, he was also in a difficult position. He valued Bruce's potential, but at the same time, he had to maintain harmony in his school. If he ignored the demands of his senior students, he risked losing their support and damaging his school's reputation. Bruce, of course, was not someone who would quietly accept rejection. He had fought for everything in his life, on the streets, in the classroom, and in the martial arts school. He wasn't about to walk away just because some people thought he didn't belong. However, the tension became too much to ignore. Even though IP Man never officially expelled Bruce, the constant hostility from senior students made it clear that Bruce's time at the school was coming to an end. Bullied and isolated. Bruce Lee had always been a fighter, but this battle was different. It wasn't about throwing punches or dodging attacks in the streets. It was about proving that he belonged. After some senior students at IP Man's school turned against him because of his mixed heritage, Bruce found himself increasingly isolated. Many students refused to train with him, while others openly challenged him in sparring sessions, trying to push him out through force. But Bruce wasn't the type to back down. Instead of leaving, he trained harder than ever. When the other students went home, Bruce stayed behind, practicing for hours. He repeated the same techniques over and over, hitting the wooden dummy until his hands were sore, drilling his footwork, and perfecting his speed and accuracy. His body ached from exhaustion, but he refused to stop. This wasn't just about getting better at Wing Chun. It was about proving to himself and to everyone else that he was just as worthy as any other student. No amount of exclusion or bullying could break his spirit. Even though he had few allies in the school, Bruce focused on his goal: mastery. But the isolation took a toll on him. Martial arts had always been Bruce's way of expressing himself, and now the very thing he loved was being used against him. He was no stranger to fighting, but this kind of rejection was harder to deal with. The mental battle was just as tough as the physical one. Still, Bruce refused to let anyone decide his future for him. Even though he wasn't fully accepted at the school, he knew one thing: he would never stop training. IP Man's decision. The tension in the school kept growing. Senior students deliberately targeted Bruce in sparring sessions, turning friendly training into full-contact fights. There were whispers of complaints, some demanding that Bruce be removed from the school entirely. As a traditional martial artist, IP Man valued harmony among his students. The growing hostility in his own school was a problem he couldn't ignore. But he also couldn't ignore Bruce's potential. Despite the difficulties, Bruce was one of the most dedicated students he had ever seen. IP Man knew that if Bruce continued training, he could develop into an extraordinary martial artist. However, keeping him in the main school was no longer an option. The environment had become too toxic. So, IP Man made a compromise. Bruce wouldn't train at the main school anymore, but he would still be allowed to learn Wing Chun under Wang Shun-leung, one of IP Man's top students. Wang had already played a significant role in shaping Bruce's understanding of Wing Chun, and now he would take over Bruce's instruction entirely. This way, Bruce could continue to develop his skills without further disrupting the school. For Bruce, this was a mixed outcome. He was still learning, but he knew this decision meant that he would never be fully accepted by the school's traditionalists. However, he didn't let it discourage him. If anything, it made him even more determined. His time at IP Man's school had taught him valuable lessons, not just about martial arts, but about people, tradition, and adversity. Unofficial training with Wang Shun-leung. After being quietly removed from IP Man's main school, Bruce Lee's Wing Chun journey didn't stop. Instead, it took a new direction under Wang Shun-leung, one of IP Man's top students. Wang was known for his aggressive, no-nonsense approach to Wing Chun, and he had a reputation as a fighter who had tested his skills in real street brawls. He saw potential in Bruce and agreed to continue training him in private. Since Bruce was no longer welcome at the main school, their training sessions had to move elsewhere. They often practiced at Wang's father's apartment, where they would clear space to work on drills, techniques, and sparring. When they needed more room, they took their training to the rooftops of Hong Kong's crowded buildings. These sessions were intense and focused on practical combat effectiveness rather than tradition. Wang emphasized real-world application. He didn't just teach Bruce the mechanics of Wing Chun, he drilled him on how to apply them in fast, unpredictable fights. Bruce learned to refine his punches, improve his footwork, and react to opponents with precision and speed. Wang's goal wasn't just to make Bruce skilled in forms and drills, he wanted him to be able to win fights against real opponents in real situations. This no-rules approach was exactly what Bruce needed. He had always been drawn to practical martial arts, and Wang's teachings reinforced the idea that fighting was about what worked, not just following tradition. Bruce became even more confident, and his fighting skills grew sharper. These lessons prepared him for future challenges, both on the streets of Hong Kong and later in martial arts competitions and Hollywood. School boxing tournament. Bruce Lee's love for fighting didn't stop at Wing Chun. As he trained under Wang Shun-leung, he also became interested in Western boxing, which was gaining popularity in Hong Kong. Unlike Wing Chun, boxing focused on head movement, footwork, and powerful punches, offering Bruce a new way to test his skills. At King George V School, where Bruce was a student, an annual boxing tournament was held. It was one of the most anticipated events, and Bruce decided to enter the competition. At this point, he had no formal boxing training, but he believed that his Wing Chun skills, especially his straight punches and fast reactions, could give him an edge. The tournament's defending champion was Gary Elms, a well-trained boxer with experience in Western-style fighting. Many assumed that Bruce, coming from a traditional Chinese martial arts background, wouldn't be able to compete against a skilled boxer. But Bruce saw this as an opportunity to prove himself. During the matches leading up to the final, Bruce quickly adapted to boxing rules. He used his Wing Chun stance to stay balanced and his fast punches to overwhelm opponents. Unlike traditional boxers who relied on looping punches, Bruce's straight-line Wing Chun attacks gave him an advantage. He closed the distance quickly and struck before his opponents could react. The final fight against Gary Elms was intense. Gary had strength and boxing experience, but Bruce had speed and adaptability. Bruce applied Wing Chun principles by keeping his movements direct and efficient. He avoided wild swings and instead landed precise, powerful punches. His ability to quickly counterattack made it difficult for Gary to mount an effective offense. In the end, Bruce won the match, becoming the new champion of the King George V School Boxing Tournament, creating his own style. Bruce Lee had always been a restless learner. From his early days in Wing Chun to his experiences with boxing and street fights, he had begun to see flaws in sticking to just one martial art. Every style had strengths, but it also had limitations. This realization planted the seeds of what would later become Jeet Kune Do, his revolutionary martial philosophy. One of Bruce's biggest frustrations was that traditional martial arts followed rigid rules. Wing Chun was excellent for close-range combat, but what if an opponent fought from a distance? Boxing had strong punches, but what about kicks? Each system worked well in specific situations, but Bruce didn't want to be limited. He wanted to be effective in any fight. He started exploring new techniques. His experience in boxing during the school tournament had shown him the power of footwork and head movement. He studied Western fencing, fascinated by its emphasis on timing, distance, and speed. He also experimented with high kicks and powerful strikes from styles outside of Wing Chun. This constant search for improvement eventually led Bruce to move away from traditional Wing Chun. While he respected IP Man and what he had learned, he felt that martial arts should be about practicality, not tradition. Instead of memorizing fixed movements, Bruce wanted to train his body and mind to adapt in real combat. His approach was simple. Take what works, discard what doesn't. If a technique was useful, he kept it, no matter where it came from. If something was ineffective, he dropped it, even if it was part of a respected martial art. He believed that a fighter should be free, not trapped by rigid styles. Despite leaving Wing Chun, Bruce's time under IP Man still played a big role in his journey. Wing Chun had given him a strong foundation in speed, precision, and efficiency. But now, he was ready to go beyond. He wasn't just learning martial arts anymore. He was creating his own. Bruce Lee's journey with IP Man may have ended, but it was just the beginning of his evolution as a martial artist. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our next celebrity story.